So the next thing we're going to do is take this bottom chord, which right now is exactly the same length as the top chord, and we're going to go through a series of steps to divide this by a distance that is determined by this trim slider that you see on the left. The first thing that we need to do is to create new endpoints along that line, one at the far end and one at the near end. And to do that, I'm going to use a couple of different tools to do this. The first one is going to be to divide the curve by distance. So we can divide distance. So instead of just divide curve, it's divide by distance. And we want to put in some information for that. So first it wants to know what curve is being divided. That's easy. It's the move. It's the bottom chord is being divided. And I'll move the other divide out of the way. And then it wants a distance. And for that, I'm going to take the overall length of the top chord, which is now the length of the bottom chord, and subtract the trim distance. So for that, I can use the Math tab, and I can simply go to the subtraction component, and I can bring in the length and the trim length, and these two are now subtracting from one another, and I can bring the result of that as the distance that I'm using to create this, to use this divide distance. So if I click on a component, it turns green, and then if I look into the Rhino window, the geometry that's green is what is associated with that component. So you can see that I have the division by distance is pulling in the far end of this. It's moving the point at least. I'll have to create a new line that uses that as its endpoint. But it's not moving the beginning point. So that's a start. We have some geometry that we'll be able to use to start creating a new bottom chord that is shorter than the one that's there now. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to create another divide distance, or in this case I could just take the one I have and copy it. Notice when you copy something, it brings along the wires that go with it, and so this is fine because I actually want to have the same geometry being divided, but I want to come up with a different number to divide it by. So the distance. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to disconnect that subtraction. Notice when a component turns orange like this, it does not have enough data to be completed. And what I'm going to add to it is a wire from the trim length to there. And what you'll see is I get a series of divisions. It's divided by the number that I'm trimming. Now, this is not necessarily useful data. What I really want is just the point that's the second one in, not the one at the beginning, but the second one in is the point from that whole list of points is what I want. And you can see if you hover over the output of that divide distance, it has 10 values right now, right? And we only want the second one. And similarly, our first division has 2. If I click on it, you can't quite see them. They're hiding in back there. But it has 2 points, one at the beginning of the line and one partway toward the end. It has 2 points, and from this list, I want the last one. So I have a set of points in each of these, of which I want 1 point from each to create a line. And I can put my component in for the line right now. I can, in fact, just go to the curves component tab, and I just want a 2-point line. But I need to work through the data coming out here, and I need to sort the data in order to get just the points that I want to go into this line command, which will become the new bottom chord. So working from the Sets tab, I want to be able to reach into the data from each of these point collections, and I want to cull out the ones that I want. So I've placed the cull index, and what cull means is that it's going to remove the part of the list that I've asked it to remove, leaving only the part that I want. And to tell it what indices that I want to use to cull, leaving behind only the part that I want, I have to tell it which of these two values, the first or the second, to take away. So to do that, I need to refer the index to which of these two. The first one, listed in the numeric way that computers list things, will be number 0, and the second one will be number 1. So I can quite easily give that data to this. I can use from the parameters tab this panel component, which I've just brought down, double click. Panel components are good for entering data like 0, or even writing a note for yourself and not having it be data that goes out somewhere, or even to take the output of some component and have it show up as a list. In this case, I'm using it to put the number 0 into the index so that I'm taking away the first one in the list. So if I hover over this on the left, the input has these 2 points, the output has only 1, and it's the second of them, which is the one that I want, for the endpoint of my line. We're going to be using the panel component numerous times here. Keep in mind, when you double click and input a value here, do not hit return. If Grasshopper encounters a number or some data that it needs, but then a return, it will not be able to interpret that. So I'll give you another example of that in just a moment. But for now, we're using this panel component to know that we're taking out, we're culling away the first item in this list by using the number 0 to indicate the first item in that list. And we can hide the results of these two divisions, all of those points, by left windowing them and then pressing down on the scroll wheel, the middle button, and then indicating the little head with a blindfold, disable preview. So what you'll see is here, the only point we have now visible is the endpoint, which has been culled from this list, and that if I move my trim around, you'll see that point moving back and forth. If I highlight it again, you'll see it moving in green back and forth. So we know that that's working. So now we need to get a start point, and we'll need to use the results of this subdivision. But in this case, we want only the second point in this. So we're going to have to do something a little bit different. We can select an item from a list using the Sets tab, but not from Sequence, but from the Lists pull down, and we can have list item, retrieve a specific item from a list. Keep in mind that I could also double-click on the canvas and type in item, and list item is one of the ones that comes up pretty quickly. So for this, we need a list, which will be this list of points that we've gotten out. And I remember I said before that you can use a panel component in order to visualize a list. Let me copy that and just open it here. So this is one of the uses of a panel component. You can see what data is coming out of a component. It's a list with, in this case, 17 items. And that can be useful. You can pass this data along and you can watch what it's doing, which we'll be doing some more of later just to troubleshoot. I'm going to get rid of that right now because you can also hover over the output of a component to see what is coming out of it. But sometimes a panel component allows you to see that better. I am going to copy this again, not to visualize, but to input a number. And in this case, I'll double click and I want to change it to, I want to select the number 1 item from this list, not the 0, which would be the point at the beginning of the line, but the next point along. So I want this to be a number 1. So I'll put my list in. And if you look at the screen on the left, in green on the left, you see that point, which I've now culled. I've actually chosen out of the list. I've culled the other point from the list. So now, when I move my trim slider, I get two new endpoints that slide along what was the bottom chord, and I can use those to construct a new bottom chord. So in fact, the move component, which was the bottom chord, see it's lit up here in green and here on the left in green. I'm also going to take that and I can turn off its preview. You can either right click and turn off preview, or mouse wheel click and use this for visualization. It's now gone, but I'm going to create a new line using these 2 points as the beginning and end points, right? And you can see those here in Rhino. So now my bottom chord will follow the trim, and it will be almost as wide as the top chord, or 4 feet narrower at both ends. So I'm going to pause the video now, and that was a pretty complex set of operations that we were doing. And we'll come back in the next one and start constructing the diagonal panels, and then pipe this up to get it done. Thank you.